guys, welcome back to the show. On the line today, I've got Rookie. Rookie, say hello.
Hey guys, how are you?
So
this is Rookie from I moved to 1182, Planet 1182, and joined Seraphim. So I'm with the Badger and Krylar group right now. You know, I'd always been very curious about what Seraphim was like, and you know, it's always been an intriguing group to me. So I thought, well, now's as good a time as any to go over there and see what they're like.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I migrated over there, and migration's pretty expensive when you're as big an arc as I am, and Odad knows that as well. But anyway, I migrated and have been with them for about 30 days. It's been great.
So you've been there for a month. You migrated there. I guess players probably want to know. So obviously Odad, biggest English player in the game by far, like something like 2-point-something billion. Where are you at right now? Are you the second biggest?
Oh no, I think I'm probably 6th or 7th. I actually been striving to be half the size of Odad. I'm about 1.7, a little over 1.7 billion in power, and I've grown considerably in the last year. I've probably gone from in 1 year, from half a billion to 1.7.
Wow.
So there's a lot of growth over the last year.
Wow. Now, when you said 6th or 7th in power, is that 6th or 7th in the world? Because I thought you were the second English speaking in the world.
Oh, I don't know about English speaking. I think that I want to say his name is Money. I think he's a little bit bigger than me.
Okay.
He's got those money symbols in his name.
Oh, that's TB from CAD. Yeah, he's an English player.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit bigger, but 2, 3, 4. I guess it's about in that range.
Okay, so I guess I want to say I'll ignore the story of like I remember when I first heard about you and I was like, who is this Rookie guy? And then that was about a year ago, and wow, yeah, definitely the time has changed. You went from being just a big dog to one of the biggest ships in the game. But then also on the channel, I always joke about the confirm gold expense. And for those of you guys that don't remember, if you go to your options and you confirm your gold expense, you can turn it on or turn it off. If you have it on, then every time you're about to spend gold, less than 2 gold, less than 4 gold, it'll do for free. If it's over 4 gold, it'll ask you, are you sure you want to spend gold? And I've always said, I've many times have I had it off and accidentally misclicked, lost 1,000 gold here, lost 1,000 gold there, but never a major amount of gold. And I guess that's what prompted this conversation today, right?
Yeah, and so I clicked that off a very long time ago. I spent enough gold that screen becomes really annoying, that confirm screen, especially when you're in the middle of a battle or something that's time sensitive going on in the game. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be confronted with all these confirm things, with gold spent. And last night I was hurrying, trying to get some more of my troops evolved before the end of the event, and I had to go to bed. And I wish I could take it back, but I clicked right instead of left, which is where the gold button is, and boom, there goes about 1 million gold.
So let me.
Evolve.
So you were doing a repurpose or an evolve? Oh wait,
I was evolving.
Oh, evolving. Okay, so you have the choice when you got to spend more resources than you currently have, that it says use item in blue or confirm the amount of gold it's going to take. Okay, so
correct.
I have the screen in front of me right now for the viewers. And you just clicked gold confirm, but actually had the 900 to 1 million gold, 900K, and it went through?
Correct. Oh yeah, it went right through. I had just over about 3 million gold, and I've been building it up in anticipation for the next equipment event, because I want to use that to buy a bunch of melange. Mm-hmm. But so I did that, and I was like, oh, how stupid, and I've done it before. I did it probably about 6 or 8 months ago, where I spent a couple 100,000 gold, and it hurt a little bit, but nothing like this.
So that's 900,000 gold. Basically, you're not getting any value for that. I mean, if you look at my screen right now, it's 70. I'm looking for 120 million. Actually, 50 million cash is costing 500,000 gold. So you literally spent 1 million gold and you got 100,000 cash worth of resources out of it. Basically just wasted. Oh, sorry, 100 million cash. Yeah. So you contacted...
The exact cost, the exact cost of the Evolve would have been something like 84 million food, 84 million parts, and half that in electricity. And that would have been my upgrade. Or Evolve. And so I would just normally click that button on the left, which is blue, and then it'll give you the option, to load up resources from boxes, which is what I do, and then done. The Evolve, gets started, and then I just have to speed it up.
Right.
So, but you use the gold button, and it skips all of that
instantly.
It just takes gold for all the speed and the resources. And so I sent a note to support right afterwards. It didn't even occur to me that they would deny this. So I sent a note saying, hey, listen, I made a mistake. This is what I did. Hey, can you reverse the transaction? Get rid of the troops and just give me the gold back. Because it would have been 100. I forgot the name of the T12 walker, the hit point walker, whatever those are called. It was 100 of those, and just give me the gold back, the 920. This morning I wake up, I log in and kind of expecting to see my gold back to where it was, and then I get and it's not. And the message I got from support was, more or less, too bad you made that mistake. We can't help you.
Okay, let me clarify. So you made the mistake last night, contacted support, said, hey, can you undo this 1 million gold mistake? That's worth about $1,000 real dollars at least. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah, $1,000 mistake on one misclick button. Could have happened to anyone. I've got a pathetic story where I spent 1,000 gold in my first couple months, and I tried to get my 1,000 gold back, and they told me to pound sand, and I was like, well, screw this game. I should have quit back then. But so you contacted them and expected them to just reverse it, take away the troops, give me back the resources, easy peasy. It's $1,000, make it right. I'm a good player. But they said no. Okay, so
they said no.
Now, did you email the community at Seven Pirates, the VIP email, or did you just go through the support channel in game?
So I went through the support channel in game. I had no idea this was going to be a problem. So I went through the support channel in game. Saw the denial message this morning. I kind of blew up at the support staff. I don't cuss when I get, I get mad at support, but I don't cuss. I know these people are just employees. And they probably take a beating. So
from Badger.
Badger's very polite in his meetings.
He is. He's good.
He's very polite. He doesn't go off the hand. I've seen some really brutal messages.
Oh, yeah.
Go to support, and I'm thinking, how do you expect these people to respond? They're not going to lift a finger to help you.
Well, the problem with Badger's complaints is they're valid. So the poor support people.
Oh my God. Well, his latest kick is the false advertising, and it's a problem. That's probably what got me in to begin with, because I found this game through Facebook.
Really?
But in any event, so I went to the VIP line after that. I screenshotted all my stuff. I'd already thrown up my shield, because at that point I'm just kind of saying, this is enough. This is ridiculous. They're not going to help me. So I went to the VIP line, posted all my screenshots, told them, hey, listen, either you fix this or I'm leaving the game. They came back with, well, we'll give you half the gold back.
Oh.
And I said, don't bother with that. I'm done. So
what that is hold on. That's haggle culture with digital goods that mean nothing to them. It's literally a line of code. They could have fixed that, and they still try to haggle with you. That's just the worst, man.
It's funny because, Badger has talked about that, as we're talking about
that's what came to mind.
And pushing improvements into the game. And he's talked about the fact that all this stuff is free. It's digitally made up. And, concept really didn't occur to me. I didn't really think about that until I started to really think about it. And it is all free stuff. Why are we arguing over stuff that has no cost or value outside of this game?
Yeah.
Especially when people spend the kind of money that some people spend.
Do you want to divulge that? I have to ask. Do you want to say how much you've spent?
I don't know what my total spend is, but I can tell you what. I'll tell you what I can tell you.
Okay.
I started to track my spend on the main account and some of my alts from the beginning of February this year, or beginning of March of this year.
So 4 months ago.
4 months. And so right now I am at about $52,000 for that 4 month period.
Shit.
And so before I've been operating on a budget, and I'm over budget. But I mean, before I was really, I think, even worse. I mean, a lot worse. So it's been quite eye-opening to look at my spreadsheet that tracks what I buy, especially during these events that we just had concluded. You know, this list mid-year event that just ended. I spent a lot of money during these events, and you know, it's like candy. It's like being in a candy store and not realizing what the true cost of some of these packs are over time.
Yeah, and I want to touch that because, like, on one note, like, obviously I deal with criticisms of spending in game because I've spent in game, right? Like, I'm not. I mean, $50,000 is a lot more to me than it is to you, but at the end of the day, you know, people ask you, how could you possibly spend money on cell phone games? They're free. And it's like, well, you don't understand. There's an element that draws you in and you spend a ton of time and you get really invested and it's a hobby. And like some of the guys that play this game will just fly into Vegas for a weekend, spend 50 grand and go home. Okay. So to them, staying home and spending 5 grand is a big savings of money. You know, it seems silly, but I have that weird understanding that I get what you're saying. Like I want to crap myself. That's a ridiculous amount of money. But I understand how it happens because this game operates on a gambling pretense. There's a lot of chance involved, and it's almost predatory, and it's not regulated yet. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future of this game, and that's part of the fun of this channel is hearing stories like this and documenting things like this as they go down, because you are in a unique position that if you quit the game, that 4 months of $52,000 paid the staff, their entire staff's salary, right? They want you to keep playing more than they want me. Now they want 100 other players like me and then one of you too. They you know, you wouldn't play alone if it was just you and you logged in the server. So they need a lot of players, but they also need the big dog spending. But they need to make sure that they're not giving away deals or giving away too much stuff that'll get them in trouble. And because it's unregulated, the only thing that can really happen is as a community, we can rally up and be like, hey, you need to fix this, or hey, we need to say screw this guy. Because at the end of the day, like I could have taken this and said, you fucked up, there goes your $1,000, too bad for you, rookie. Or on the other hand, I can go, wait a minute, no, he's kind of right. This player doesn't deserve to be punished for a misclick like this, and it's such a simple thing to fix. It just happened. You didn't wait 3 weeks. You didn't get a huge advantage over someone else. It's something that should be done, and I truly think that if you email the community, email people about the actual story, what happened, they'd be able to fix it. I mean, so where are you at with that? It's been what, 12 hours?
Yeah, so about 12 hours exactly is my last comment to them. Through the line VIP chat. I don't feel like I should have to go through this. I feel like this should have been solved the moment they got my first mail. I'm not asking for something that another player doesn't have access to. I mean, I guess, you know, I've heard stories. Recently, I heard a story that I won't mention the name, but somebody tried to hit the ultimate boss with their big troops and got blown out. Lost everything. And wrote support, argued with them, and support gave them all their troops back.
Right.
I don't know if I totally agree with that, but okay, fine. But here's a simple mistake. I have the resources.
Right.
I have the speed ups. Just take those and give me the gold back. And that was, I mean, if you see, I've done 20 to 30 evolves last night within a 30-minute period because I continued right on. You'll see that's what I was doing. I wasn't using gold. I wasn't intending to use gold. And by the way, who uses gold? Why is that option even there?
Unless it's like less than 1,000, then maybe. Just maybe. But So let me add on to that.
What player is going to use what player is going to use gold to build, evolve, or repurpose troops?
Especially at the price they charge. It's a ridiculous amount of gold.
Yeah.
So your claim makes a lot of sense. Other players make mistakes against monsters. The devs have been known to refund them. Players get hacked, and the devs refund it. Okay, those are all reasonable. Your claim is reasonable. I expect them to come through on it. And as the story develops, we'll check in the comments below for anyone watching, or join the line chats. I'm sure this will be talked about for a while, because this is something that needs to be addressed. And I don't think the developers intended to accidentally let people spend $1,000 like this. This isn't a trap, They wouldn't intentionally do this, because no one would take this laying down. Not after this. And I want to just comment on what you said. I didn't think this would be a problem. Like when you woke up this morning and you thought you'd have the gold back, let me tell you, I started laughing because every interaction I have with them, and I have an email every day from them, it's never how you expect. It's the most ridiculous company to work with. And it's like, if it wasn't like costing me money, it would be more fun. But yeah, the disappointment's real. So.
Well, yeah, that's exactly. I really was shocked that it wasn't fixed this morning, and it was a layup. I think this is like a simple fix. It's not even a rollback. This is just a quick exchange. But there's a lot of cultural differences that I'm still kind of learning about with the Chinese culture. I've never really had an interaction with Chinese culture on the level that I currently have with this game. And by the way, it's a great game. Love the game. But the game is great, but what's even better is being part of a team and being, and meeting new people and interacting with them and having fun on the side, through Discord or line chat or whatever system we're using to communicate.
Right.
It is just a terrific overall experience. And in terms of the money I've spent over the last few months, to me, it's I won't say it's a good investment. It's not, but to me, it's something that doesn't bother me. It really doesn't, because I spent a lot of time doing this, and I enjoy interacting with the people in the guild and in the community in general. So, but in terms of this cultural difference with the Chinese, it's a very, I think that, they live in a regime where it's, the government's very authoritarian. There is no negotiating with the government. And they've taken that same stance as game developers, the game chiefs, in terms of how they handle the player community. And it's very authoritarian. And, you really have to come up with a player. You're looking up at these chiefs, and you got to come up with this convincing argument that you're right, and then sometimes they get into a good mood and they bestow what you're asking. Now I can tell you, they pretty much flat out denied everything I've ever asked for. When we did the strike with Oded, however many months ago, we came up with a list of things to improve the game and to help the free-to-play player or the smaller spending player. Pretty much everything on that list was shot down. And that became kind of the eye-opener that, hey, these guys just don't really care about interacting with the player community and trying to take a holistic approach to improving the game.
I have to.
You mentioned earlier, and just to just to continue that thought, you mentioned earlier, my account's important to them. Yes, it is, but if we don't have the free-to-play player or the smaller spending player, there is no game.
Yeah. Yeah, and
there is nothing. There's no, there's just no server activity. GC's boring. They've got to have the whole community. And one of the things that I've been adamant, or not adamant, but been pushing to them is they've got to change the structure of GC. They've got, it's me and 4 or 5 other arcs fighting against 4 or 5 other arcs on the other side, maybe more. But then there's 70 people that are just kind of moving to the back because they're T9.
Okay, so there's a reason for that, and I want to jump into that. We'll go down a rabbit hole with that. I want to jump back to your negotiating statement. I know. Let's go back a couple minutes here. When you negotiate with them, and as far as their government and their regime, I don't even want to touch that because I'm not educated enough on the subject. But I have experience working with Chinese companies, and I know one of the things you absolutely, I mean, and this goes with most negotiating, is if you pull a hostile takeaway from them, the general response is they won't respond back because they think that's how you do business. And negotiating and haggling in the business world in China is seen as like, this is the kind of player you are. It's a strategy. It's a game. It's not personal. It's all business. And they think we are the same way, but that's not the way Americans are. We're very much family businesses. We're very much, one shake one hand at a time. The customer's always right. That is not the way they do business there. And every takeaway, any threat you make against them, if you don't do this, I won't do that. That's pretty much a dead deal in their eyes. At least that's my experience with the Chinese companies I've worked with. So, and I've dealt with that firsthand. So I just wanted to add that in there. So dealing and haggling with them is it's its own experience. And going back all the way up to what you said about the changes the community's making is they got so big so fast. Seven Pirates went from like a fledgling game company that had a couple mildly successful titles to all of a sudden Ark of War hit. Game of Survival was okay, but Ark of War hit, and they started making millions. And their overhead is tiny. You can see their building, you can see their staff. They're not paying a ton of money. They're paying a ton of money to like the servers for hosting the game. That costs money, and then the advertising to get the game out there in front of people to Google. But the rest of their overhead hasn't really changed. Their staff, their programmers, all the same people. Their assets, their media stuff, they don't really throw a lot of money into that. I mean, so they really need to realize that this game is, even though they think they've got an easy run of money going here, it's a very fragile game. Games don't last forever. Big spenders don't play them forever unless you keep them interesting. And at any given moment, players will shift to a new game. If you lose 30% of your players in 2 or 3 months, like Eve Echoes comes out next month. It's what Ark of War emulated 5 years ago. Well, Eve Echoes now is here. And Eve Echoes is going to be way bigger. And we're going to lose a lot of players to it. I'm going to play it. But it scares me because if 30% of the Ark of War players go, what happens if you log into your guild and 30% of the players haven't been on in 7 days? And then a month later, 30% more haven't been on in 7 days. What are you going to do? Are you going to go back to Dom? Because Dom probably experienced the same thing. Are you going to try and migrate to win? Are all the super goods going to start merging down and merging down? No, what the game really needs to do is increase player retention, player involvement, community, robust communities. I've been pushing the other YouTube content creators and just involvement amongst non-Ark of War things just to keep people in the world and in the game, because at the heart of it, I actually do think Ark of War is a fascinating journey. Like, I'm not done here. I want to see where this game goes. I want to see the lawsuits that come up. I want to see the arcs that quit, the arcs that get zeroed. I think there's a story here. But we're going to lose those players if the developers don't start embracing them better. They say they're doing a better job. They've got a better email. They're starting to come around. They're getting, the last couple patches have been good. Simulation, the brain plug-in, that's been really good. I'll give them that. But the whole Ark of War community channel, that's we're working on that still. That's a work in progress. But Galactic Battle being funded by 5 players on one side and 5 on the other. That's a common story trope. I have a Chinese friend who says he reads a lot of Chinese books and anime and manga and all that, and he says that the big brother hero type stories where you have one big strong guy that leads the village or the one big rich guy that leads the family. That's the kind of game we have here. Is you have the one big guy that is carried by the rest of the guild that supports and pushes him. And that's kind of what the super guilds looked like in the early days, and that's what they look like now. But that's a common thing in China. That's not too popular in America, that story type. So just throwing that out there.
No, I agree with hey, listen, they have made a lot of great improvements to the game. I think the simulation is terrific. What a great opportunity to try a lot of different things with the plug-in skills and all that. But I do also think that there is some issues with some background stuff that goes on that we don't know about. And, one of the other beefs I've had is the fact that I happen to notice that skills just do not process, for me, at the rates that are posted for these commanders.
Mm.
And where this really came up was we had and this is probably a couple weeks ago since I've been with Seraphim. We have a Chinese player. He's probably about just under 300 million in power. He's a big Dragon Slayer main, and we were going at it. I don't remember if we were going on the arcs or if we were in a capital, but he and I were going at it. I had my Dragon Slayer main. He had his Dragon Slayer. We were about the same equipment, and so he was attacking me with slot 1 and 4 bust, and then I scouted him. I think I was going after his arc, so I scouted him, and he had moved the 1 and 4 slot bust to 2 and 5, and he put a Ranger in slot 1, and so naturally I jumped in with my slot 1 full on Dragon Slayer, and I attacked, got nothing. I killed the Ranger, that's all. I didn't even get an Awakening.
Oh, you were going for the Shockwave. Oh.
I was going for the Shockwave. So I thought, oh my goodness, what a missed opportunity and bad luck, So, but I was suspicious. I thought, this is really, if it were him hitting me and I was in that formation, he would have gotten the Shockwave. But then I started to look at Dragon Slayer in the simulator, and then Ace, and then Peak and All-Star. I was starting to look at the battle replays, started to add up each attack and counting the number of procs for Shockwave, and I wasn't getting 60%. I was getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 45%.
So that's an argument that's been made since the beginning of Arc of War, and every time it's brought it up, I've squashed it, and because I've ran the tests with Wings of Eternity. I remember doing it a long time ago, 100 times.
Yeah.
And I was like, the trigger rates are just, listen, it's math. It can be unfortunate. But if you're saying, and you're not the first person to say this, like I said, it's been going around for a long time. And that failed trigger rate, what people don't realize, how many troops was he risking at the time?
He had a full slot. He had full 2 and 5 slots.
So anywhere between, if that Shockwave would have hit, he would have lost anywhere between 4,000 and 40,000 real dollars because it was server side, right?
Correct.
So a stack of troops max tier on a max leadership comm is minimum 4,000 if you pay discount wholesale prices for resources, maximum $40,000 if you pay for it through the game. So that trigger rate literally would have cost him almost up to $4,000 to $40,000, and you were unlucky you didn't get to punish him. So I get the concern there. I do. I get how you'd look at that and go, man, that trigger rate didn't seem right. It seems like it should have triggered more often. So how many did you run the math? How many times did you run it?
I probably looked at about 100 different triggers, like 100 different slot attacks. So there's enough to create a statistical sample that's valid.
Sure, 100.
And so I communicated with the devs, and they came back with, well, no, it's 60%, and I said, no, it's not, and they go, yes, it is. So that just died where it is. And I wasn't sure if they were manipulating my arc, if this guy is. I started to go down these crazy thoughts in terms of, is this, are they
biased,
looking at me and affecting my art, or is this a pervasive problem in the entire game? So some crazy thought processes were going on in my head at the time, but I do think there is an issue with my particular Dragon Slayer not processing at the posted rates. And they won't, listen, they've never acknowledged anything like that in terms of manipulation of commanders in the background.
Right.
And I don't think they ever will.
Well, and then to play devil's advocate here, it'd be a lot easier to just program the game with the math provided as opposed to changing it on the fly for any one particular arc but that's not to say there can't be issues. Games have bugs. So if you have a 60% trigger rate in Explore and you have a 60% trigger rate when you're defending your arc, who's to say that when you're in a capital that the capital mechanism is a little bit different, maybe there is a bug there. Maybe Dragon Slayer, as a defender or in her second attack, all of a sudden her skills have a 50% less to trigger. Or if Stella's Wings of Eternity triggers in the previous capital battles that have been ongoing, now all trigger rates are lower because of a particular skill is bugged. There could be a lot of things, and it's worth investigating. You shouldn't just blindly dismiss things. I'll give you that there because of the stakes of what's at play here. But generally speaking, it just makes so much more sense to just do what you advertise because it's just so much easier. So.
Well, and that's the point I was trying to make. Listen, I do think that Dragon Slayer is way overpowered, and so if they want to lower Shockwave to 40%, lower it to 40%, but put it on the report. I mean, put it on the description. Why do we have to have all the subterfuge on changing things like that? I've noticed some weird things. Like Odad was frustrated with Pete, probably 6 months ago when you did your interview with him. I was noticing some weird things going on where troops that are half my leadership and half the troops are beating my commanders. And, I'm putting in, for Pete, for example, I did the auto sign up.
Right.
This was before this current season. And, I'm going through my reports. It's 20, 20, 20, 20, and instead of the 200, I'm not even getting out of the first slot. And I started to look at some of those reports and some of the battle replays, and I'm getting beat by commanders half my size on a regular basis. I checked the gear. The gear is the same. I spent a lot of money on gear trying to get my Dragon Slayer, or not Dragon Slayer, Hancock and Elf gear to all plus 45. So, that made a substantial improvement. But it's just some funky things going on in different aspects of the game that just didn't make sense to me.
Sure.
And still don't make sense to me.
Did you see my video about the Stank Stella build where I ran 10 replays with, what did I do? 10 replays with Stella attacking, 10 replays with Mysterious Warrior attacking, 10 replays defending, and then 10 replays with Mysterious Warrior defending. Did you see that video?
I didn't see that, no.
Okay, so in that video, what it revealed is that Cassiopeia is so powerful that if a Walker trigger, if Elf has first strike, and she triggers Cassiopeia on her first slot before Stella or Mysterious Warrior ever gets to go, then Cassiopeia makes her immune to all the debuffing, which makes Mysterious Warrior and Stella so good. So in the replays, I think I won 6 out of 10 when I was defending, but I only won 2 out of 10 when I was attacking. And the replays looked like either I lost no troops and I killed all of hers, or she lost almost no troops and she killed all of mine. It was like 50-50, I lose everything or she loses everything. And there's like 1 or 2 outliers. So it's one of those things where you might get a confirmation bias if you go looking for something, because some matchups are extremely volatile based off of one trigger. But I'll tell you this, I get what you're saying. I think there's going to be a lot of players digging into this. I mean, I'll dig more into this too, just to see if we can get different trigger rates proven. The developers, I'm sure, are probably sick of hearing it. They probably get it all the time. But I think we should just let that hatchet go for now and just move on to the next thing. And that is, well, yeah, unless you want to add something to it.
Oh, no, that's, but, the gold problem, I just thought it's time to take a break.
Time to take a break? Hold on, this wasn't supposed to be an excerpt.
Time to take a break from the game.
No, this wasn't supposed to be an excerpt interview. I'm supposed to help with player retention. Oh, jeez. If you didn't play this, what would you play?
I have no idea. It is something that I have been checking out the Apple Store, checking out some of the other games in there, and I don't know if I ever want to get down another path with another game the way I have on this one. It just from the financial investment I made, it's just ridiculous.
Sure.
And there's other things to do that certainly don't cost nearly this amount of money, and they're still fun. Don't get me wrong. This game does provide a lot of terrific entertainment value for me. I mean, I spend hours and hours every single day playing it, for the last 3.5 years. But, it just, over the last couple of months, I've been kind of wondering if I'm doing, if I need to really reevaluate what's going on in my life. And this game has been a huge part of my life now for the last 3.5 years.
Sure. So you said something earlier about how much fun Ark of War's community is and how fun it is to engage with players. And I want to fasten on something to that. When you're the biggest player, one of the biggest spenders in the game, you immediately get the VIP experience. It doesn't matter if you're good or not. If you just have a ton of power, you automatically kind of get pushed to the front of like, this is the person to watch. And you don't really get that experience in non-pay-to-win games. That's one of the cool things about Ark of War, but it's also a takeaway from it. But on that same note, there are plenty of other games out there that have way more robust and easy to interact with communities, and it almost feels like, and I'm guilty of this, it feels like Ark of War is just the right place to be because of how tied into it I am. Like, I've been here for so many years, I have so many friends and experiences and history and knowledge here, it's hard to just walk away. But just know that there are other games, and there's probably better games. And that's something that...
I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's something the developers need to remember too, because you can only piss your players off so much until they start looking elsewhere. So, yeah, I just throw that out there.
No, I completely agree. There's a universe of games. You've mentioned it. There's hundreds of thousands of games. I happen to enjoy this one, but there, like I said, it's more of a need to step back, reevaluate priorities in life, and this game has been a top priority in my life. I'm single, I don't have a family, so it's not a big deal to spend time doing this. So, I'm not taking it away from somebody I love, for example, but there are a lot of other things I could be doing that are a lot more productive. And I'm not looking to exit the game. This just kind of came up with this gold situation, and I felt like I had to make a statement, and basically make the statement with my wallet. But it has, there is a little bit of withdrawal going on because I'm not used to not checking my Ark every hour on the hour. But at the same time, I'm starting to look at other things I should be doing during the day.
So you have to think, okay, the $50,000 you spent, I have to assume that if you spend $50,000 on a cell phone game, you probably spend a fair amount of money on other things. What would you say is one of the more ridiculous things you spend money on?
Well, actually, believe it or not, I'm a pretty conservative guy. But I save my money. I'm an accountant, right? And my house is paid off. All my cars are paid off. I own a business. So, I have plenty of cash in the bank, and I'm able to afford to do this. But at the same time, I'm thinking, this is probably not. I don't know. Not really prepared to talk about this, but it's more of a situation of, is this really the best way I can spend my time and money? Are there other entertainment options that are not nearly as expensive and yet as fun? There is. I think you were alluding earlier to the fact there is an ego satisfying thing about being the big dog on a server. Yeah, there is. It's fun to be the big dog and have everybody, running from you when they see your Ark coming. But there are other ways. There are other entertainment venues that are just as good, that don't cost nearly this amount of money.
Yeah.
I just haven't found them yet.
Well, Eve Echoes, man, I'm telling you. I hate, I've talked to a couple other content creators and a couple people in the line chats. Eve Echoes is going to be an amazing space game, but this isn't an ad for Eve Echoes, and they're another company that who knows what they're going to do. If they do get a huge surge of players and a bunch of money, what are they going to do with it? Because it has an element of pay to win too. The question is like, do you go? What did you play before Ark of War?
this is a bit embarrassing, but I've never really done anything like this before. I really didn't. I mean, I downloaded games that you can play for free that are, against the computer or whatever. I've never done anything where there's a player community like this before. So, this is all new stuff to me. I have a PlayStation, but, I've played Madden with somebody else that I know, but never anything like this.
Wow.
So this, like I said, I downloaded this game from Facebook about 3.5 years ago, and that's when I hooked up with Pkwy. We were both on a new server, and we had been together up until I went over to Seraphim. So, it's been terrific. I've gotten to know a lot of people and known them gotten to know them very, very well.
Pkwy, man, he gets talked about a lot around here, especially in the channel. He's been at war for quite a while. He's been doing some damage over there with Hope. Have you been getting into any PvP yourself over there at SR1, or is it pretty dead?
There's a little bit of PvP. There's a guild called Ray. I think it's a spinoff of the TNB guild. Some of the smaller guys. There's probably 2 or 3 200 million plus arcs that are there, and one of them is very, very active. He's hitting tiles all day long, and he's the one that I was going at with that Dragon Slayer. We both had Dragon Slayers, and we were both fighting each other on them. And he's good. I think he makes the game interesting. It's better to have activity on the server than not.
Oh yeah, peace is bad for business. It's a good time to plug that. It is. It gets stagnant just sitting around. But I'm at another point in the game, and we'll segue into this, is that, like, I was just thinking today, I was like, man, what am I gonna do tomorrow's video on? I've got Pimp My Arc kicking back up, replay of the week. I got a bunch of stuff I could do. I was thinking about doing this new Grievous build I'm working on, but I was thinking, man, I want to get back into PvP. And I was like, oh, I'll jump on a baby arc I have, and I'll start a new series and do just a PvP server and rally some people, and just have some fun, But you can't take a baby arc with tier 3 and be a Nemesis arc. You have to have a zeroed out tier 7 account or tier 9 account. You can't take a main arc. I can't take my main arc and go be a Nemesis account with high risk involved, because what people don't realize is that my account, this Melt account, it's worth more than just the combination of the money and stuff on it. It's the channel's identity. If my arc got zeroed, how am I going to make videos without troops? How am I going to make videos? I need to go to Galactic Battle and have no troops. To rebuild my army would cost me a couple $1,000s. I'm not ready to throw down a couple $1,000s. Could I get the developers to help? I don't know, maybe. But if you go into a server and it's stagnant, like I am on this Win server, I can't really find good PvP, and I can't even risk the troops I have because the cost of repairing them isn't worth the money I'm willing to spend. Now, I have a bunch of metal crystal. I can actually probably heal for free a few times, and I'm glad they added that. But we are at a point, we're at a spender's paradox, and even Badger and I were talking about this last time, that you can spend a ton of money in this game. You could spend $1,000 and not notice it if you've been playing this game for years. If you've already spent $10,000 and you've been playing for 4 years, if you go spend another $1,000, you may not really notice it. Going from 600,000 to 650,000 leadership doesn't put a dent in your power level, and it doesn't get you any closer to the top guys. And it's not going to give you an edge over someone who's equal to you, because you're not throwing full marches anyway. It's all tactical marches. Like, this game plays a lot better with a strict $20 to $50 a month budget. Because when you start spending a lot of money, you get that prestige of being the big guy, but you also get a ship that's extremely, extremely dangerous to play. Like, if you buy an account and you don't know how to play it. Yeah, I mean, you can't hand your phone to a friend and say, hey, check out Arc of War. Because if they attack one red tile and all of a sudden your shield drops, in 3 minutes you can be, blasted off the map. Or if they're on your shield will be down, and you'll keep getting zeroed over and over. They won't know what's going on. So yeah, I mean, in an instant, especially if you're online, your whole account can be gone, and that's just a. That's.
No, it is a bit of a catch-22, and I think that in some ways, when I was a T7 player, for example, it was expensive to lose, but it was possible to rebuild pretty quickly. I didn't think so at the time, but now it's like really dangerous. You know, you really have. I mean, I get all kinds of adrenaline going every time I go in the attack.
Oh yeah. It gets your heart going. That's for sure. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, my blood pressure shoots straight up. But that's. I think that's part of the game. That's the fun of it is getting that adrenaline up, and then when you get that big win, it's such a great feeling. And I've had that great feeling a couple times, and I've also had that really
bad
depressed, lost a whole slot at T12, and it's like, I had to shut the game off and go to bed, and wake up and start the rebuilding and the healing one at a time. It's kind of a crazy experience in this game.
It is a wild game. It is certainly a wild game. So, since I've already talked about Eve Echoes a bit, I guess in Eve Echo, and I don't play the game, I've kind of dabbled with it a bit, but apparently when you leave your base, whatever you take out of your base with yourself to go do work or whatever, you can get attacked and lose whatever's on your ship at that moment. But they don't take away everything in your cargo bay. So it's like okay to lose in PvP, and you only lose what you've been working on for the last 2 to 8 hours. You don't like lose everything you've ever made. So I think that's one way to do it. But Ark of War can't really do that, Like here's an interesting idea. What if Ark of War said, okay, so you have your main ship and your shield is up. We're going to send out a drone ship. You can take a commander with you and their gear, but they can only fit 10,000 leadership worth of troops per slot on them. So your little drone ship goes out. It's unshielded, okay? But you can go out and just PvP with what you're willing to risk. And if you lose it all, you can heal it later. But it's never that big. And then everyone else on the battlefield's only also using small amounts of troops. So that in the worst case scenario, you might lose 8 hours worth of the gameplay or a day's worth of play. They need to find a way to do something like that. And even that, because listen, losing 5,000 per slot march and having to heal that'll get your heart pumping just as much as a max leadership march. You know what I mean? Like it's still everything you have on your ship at that moment. The adrenaline risk is not worth $40,000 or whatever it is when you lose a full army. But yeah, it's
I've seen some of these replays that Pkwy has posted against Hope, and I don't know what the other guy's name is, but he's another Chinese player that came over from FBI, and there's been 6,000 or 7,000 origin lost. It's same thing with the Walker. His Dragon Slayer's really just destroying some of these big players' marches. And I guess they can afford it because they keep building back up, but it's like. I don't have the gear to match up with these guys, nor do I have the Dragon Slayer where I needed to be to be able to effectively compete with them. So kind of needed to get away from all that, and that's one of the reasons I went to Seraphim to kind of regroup. My healing crystals were 0, and I didn't want to have to go through resources heal. I mean, you know how expensive that is, so. And gold heals even more than that. So, anyhow, that's where I'm at.
So what would you like to see change? Say you take a week and you come back. What would you like to see different in a week?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what they can do. I think they've done, as a development team, as much as they probably can do to keep this game interesting for players, unless they go through a total server redesign with how players interact with the daily server, which I think they need to figure out how to do. There has to be more than just Galactic Campaign that keeps people interested in the game, and it's a tough situation they're in. It really is, and I don't know. I honestly don't. I think the World Event and Peak and All-Star and the Simulator, these are all great additions to the game, and it was all designed to keep server life a little bit more interesting. But I'm not sure that's enough. There has been a lot of players that have been leaving this game, and I'm seeing it in Seraphim. I saw it in Dom. I didn't want to go to the FBI server, or not FBI, the Win server, because there's no activity there, right? I mean, it's pretty much all dead.
Yep.
Everybody's on the same team or in an alliance. And I had some issues with a couple guys over there, but I wanted to have a little bit of action. I knew Seraphim had a little bit.
Now, if you,
I also didn't want to get into this major war that's going on in Dom. It's just I've already been through that a couple of times, and it's taken its toll on my arc.
Well, if you wanted to call out those people you've had issues with, now's a good time. Because they're not going to get the same platform.
Well,
I'm just kidding. It's probably well known through the line chats, and Army and I don't necessarily get along. And I think that kind of goes to the dynamics of the game, where you have a different personality in game than you do in real life. And I'm sure Army's a great guy, and we've had very pleasant chats on the side. I just didn't like how he managed himself in game. I thought he was a bit of a bully, and I thought he when I was with you guys for the playoffs a couple of seasons ago, and he booted a couple guys right the night. It ended up being the night before the playoff rewards were distributed with the spirit stones and all that kind of stuff, and I thought that was really, really bad. He did that?
But, yeah, he did.
Oh, Army.
And I don't think to his defense, I don't think he was. I think the intention was that they were going to bring him back a day or so later. They broke some of the rules or whatever that was in place for Win, and they were going to let him back a day or so later, hopefully in time for the playoff rewards. But the next morning, that's when the playoff rewards were given. So all these three guys were out, and they had migrated for the rewards. So it just left a really bad taste in my mouth, and I didn't want to relive any of that. So, but I think he's a great guy. I know he's a vet, and he does good work in that area, and sometimes it's good to have a little bit of a battle like that going on in game. They make things interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and as much as I'd love to defend Army, because Army's done nothing but just support this channel and everything I've ever done since the beginning.
Right.
You also need those bad guys in the guild. Now, if it was Army's idea to rob those people of their playoff rewards just because he's a jerk, that would sound really bad. If it was because the different guild leader told him it was his job to carry out the order, I don't know. But that's interesting. That's funny you say that, because Army's one of those guys too. And so I was talking to my spouse earlier. She said, how many players actually quit the game? And I was like, well, not many, not often. I was thinking, I've heard of a couple players quitting. Nacho quit and came back. Nacho quit, came back like 6 times. Army's quit and come back. Odad's interview he was supposed to have quit. And then I thought tonight might be an exit interview for you too. And I was like, he might be quitting. And this is a big deal for the game. Like, it may just be like, today you thought about unshielding yourself and quitting the game and not coming back. That affects the player base. That affects the game. If you quit and then Odad quit in a month, that changes everything. That means we restructure this whole community and what it means to be a big dog and how do we keep our big players. So something, an emotional moment you had in passing actually has a great effect on the wider player base at whole. And not to mention Seraphim, right? They've been looking for a boss player like you for a long time. I'm sure they're not happy that the devs did this. They're ready to make...
And this, all today, I've been interacting through Discord, and they've been extremely supportive. They all understand, the frustration that I'm feeling, and they absolutely support me. And that is a real challenge for me is letting the team down. I'm not participating in this week's battle. At least that's the intention. And, I think it's going to be a tough opponent, and I feel like I'm letting the team down. But they understand, this. I have to take a stand against the devs to get any – first off, the devs need to rethink how they interact with players. This is such a simple issue that they refuse to address or refuse to fix. If there's a more serious issue that comes up that – it's less cut and dry in terms of whether I deserve this or not. I have zero confidence that they're going to go my way, or be reasonable in accommodating what I'm asking for. And $1 million gold, I can, yeah, it's $1,000. You know, I put a lot. Obviously, I put $50,000 into the game. $1,000's not that big a deal, but what's the next thing that I'm going to be asking for that happened, and they're not gonna work with me on it, and I don't think I should have to resort to quitting or threatening to quit to get them to do the right thing, because I don't think it's the right thing. First off, I don't think gold should be an option to evolve troops. I mean, it should not be an option.
Yeah.
I made the mistake. They want me to own this mistake. Well, I'm going to own it, but I'm certainly not going to put any more money or time and energy into this game while I own this mistake.
See, this is one of those cases, and I can't use this. So I've been trying, and I've told people I was going to do a fireside chat about my negotiations with Seven Pirates to do like official sponsorships and promotion of the game, and it never works out. And it's because there's certain things I can't say. I can't say, hey, Seven Pirates, I'm the biggest face of your game. And 51% of my viewers are in the United States. 49% are everywhere else. Everywhere that speaks English in the world watches my YouTube channels. 26,000 unique viewers a month. Whatever I want to talk about, I get to spin the narrative. If I want to say Seven Pirates are bad guys and here's why, I can make videos every day about why Seven Pirates did people wrong. I could bring people on and badmouth them. I can call player strikes. I can call all kinds of things. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But I could tell them, like, hey, put me in charge of spin. Put me in charge of community management. And I'll make sure things like this don't happen. Because that sounds like a threat. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you don't.
Right.
But then things like, Ridiculous Badger wants to go after them for the false marketing and using other companies' assets. And he's right to do it. Like, he's within his rights to do that. In America, if you believe in something, you go after it. And his freedom of speech, and he has certain protections here, but he has to remember that they have a team of lawyers. And if he causes them damage, there's a problem there. But my point is that happy players don't air their grievances out loud to the rest of the community. Happy players want to talk about the new simulation patch, the new brain plugins, the new features with guild communication and function. There are so many positive things to talk about that any community can turn against the game developer. And it's on the game developer to kind of be in charge of their community to make sure it's being ran right. And no matter how many opportunities I give them, no matter how cheap I want to do it for them, I just keep losing hope that they're ever going to jump on board with what I'm doing here. So it's like I'm doing it for free. I'm just doing it for free anyway because I've built this community and I like the people in it. But like after a year, 2, 3 years, I had to reach out to Patreon just to get people to help me fund this channel. And I had an amazing outpour of support, like 70 new patrons, 60 new patrons for sure. A lot of them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That really is fantastic.
It is. And it shows me a lot of hope that, like, you get a bunch of views and you get a bunch of upvotes and you have a bunch of friends. Like, what I'm doing is good. People like it. This brings me joy. It brings other people joy. I'm getting to be creative. And then there's a financial, catch to it. And you're like, okay, so that's working. So I'm very thankful for that. Like, it's one of those things. If you pursue something for a year, 2, 3 years, and it finally like starts to come to something, it's valuable. But it's also extremely disappointing to know that I had to ask the players in the first place. Like, the developers don't see this as something profitable to them. And our last negotiation, I'll just put it out on the table here, was Tuesday Newsday is that show I do every Tuesday. I got to film it tonight. And I talk about the events patch, anything meta chaining, anything important. That's the show most people tune into just to make sure they don't miss anything crazy. They want that show. I sold it to them for $25 an episode, exclusive to their channel. And after a month, I said, hey, we need to do a sponsorship so I get paid for all this. I'm doing about 80 hours a week. And I said, listen, I'd like to have a $5,000 a month budget, not salary, a budget. They turned it down. They went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They just belittled everything I did, where I said, I will not take less than $1,000 if I'm taking any money at all. And they settled on they'll pay me $100 a video. I said, well, you guys can pound sand for $100 a video. Yeah, they clearly don't see what I do as worth any money. Like, I can walk away tomorrow and they don't think I was worth that $1,000 a month or whatever. So like, it's just, I'm glad the players value me, but it's really disheartening to know the developers don't. So that's...
And I don't think that's going to change. And by the way, you do great work. I mean, from day one, I started watching your videos, probably about 3 years ago. That's when I first first found out about you, and you joined our Discord server for a little bit. You know, you've worked hard, and you've done great work, and you know, when you got your new computer and were able to add graphics, you know, you've really taken your show from, you know, 1 to 10 in a relatively short period of time. So the hard work is definitely showing, and I think there's a lot of respect in the community for the work and the content you deliver. Why Seven Pirates doesn't see it, I don't know. I mean, it's because they don't produce their own. Well, clearly, the content they produce is stolen. I mean,
some of the content they have produced has been claimed to be property of other people, but I've got to be careful on my platform to let you say that. Yeah, because they can take that out of context.
Well, okay, so all right, I'll retract the statement, but clearly there are images in some of their marketing this game that I don't see in the game. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of gameplay footage. You know, and I want to play devil's advocate here because like when you go play a Blizzard game, and I play a lot of Blizzard. I mean, I definitely play StarCraft, and the cinematics for StarCraft are amazing. But StarCraft cinematics don't pretend to be actual gameplay. Their cinematics kind of want you to think it's actual gameplay, but it's not. That's kind of where they're getting, you know, attacked for, and it's also seems to be other games' assets. But it's one of those things. Like,
and I think the point that Badger was making is they don't have to do that. They have great content to advertise with. I mean, they've got, you know, terrific images of all the 12 different types of 12 levels of ships. That, you know, there's hundreds of ships that they can use to you know, build videos and images. They don't need to take other content other than what they already have, and still be an attractive game.
Yeah.
I don't know why they feel the need to do that, but again, you know, maybe I just don't understand the culture.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where, like, you know, you look at Ark of War where it was 5 years ago, and you look at Ark of War today, and you're like, oh, a lot has changed, but then a lot is still the same. Well, I think 5 years from now, depending on who's in charge of marketing and business development, they're going to dictate what kind of videos and marketing tools are used. There were some videos done a while back that were so bad. It was one of those standard, you know, games or standard promos where you have the gameplay on the main screen, and then you have like a little box of a guy going, "Oh, Ark of War, let's check this out." Oh, and he's like not actually playing the game, and it's so obvious because if you've ever played the game, you know you can't do a battle in less than 6 seconds. And it was just, you know, just kind of that absurd stuff. Oh, what is that? But
yeah, it's low budget stuff that, yeah, like you said, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But you know, to go back to Badger, you know, use what you have in the game and market with that. Yeah. And that is more than enough to you know, attract new players. But you know, whatever they want to do is what they want to do.
Yeah, and we're just here for the ride.
We are just here for the ride.
Wow. Well, we did an hour.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. I was very nervous about it, but you know, this went actually very, very smoothly. You know, hopefully I come across in the video, you know, comfortable, and you know, hopefully it flows for you.
Well, you're still being recorded. I just remind you that you do come off as a bit of a conspiracy theorist about the skill trigger rates. So if you want to add anything to that, now's the time.
Well, no, I think there's an issue with the skill trigger rates. I think it's more than just conspiracy. There is an issue there. I just haven't taken the time to actually formally document it. But I'm okay with it if everybody's dealing with the same problems. But the only issue I have is if you're going to make changes, if you're going to nerf commanders, tell the community that that's what you're doing. Adjust the posted rates. You know, don't have a rate that doesn't reflect reality. That was the point that I was trying to make, but they just kept holding the line. No, we haven't done anything. Well, the numbers don't support that. So it's, you know, those frustrations will probably always be there in some form or another. Maybe it'll be something else down the road. I do happen to agree. ODAD brought up the fact that when you're upgrading equipment, it wasn't the posted rates, for the success rate. And I've gone through, I pretty much upgrade equipment from 1 to 14, and then I use bots from there, right? So, I've had pieces of equipment that are like level 8, which is 100%, and then I go to level 9, which is 95%. Had that fail 3 times at 95% in a row. And, and I'm kicking myself because I didn't have a video of it. Do a screenshot of 3 fails in a row. And every time I go through, 100 pieces of equipment, upgrading them to 14, there's always that situation that comes up 2 or 3 times throughout that process. And the statistical probability of that happening is so low, it's not even worth mentioning.
Yeah. 1 in 20%, 1 in 20.
But I've learned to deal with it. I mean, I've learned to just accept it. It's probably not the posted success rate that they have. That everybody's dealing with the same problem. So if I'm not getting any advantage, or somebody else is not getting any advantage over me, so I could live with it. I don't know. It's weird.
Can I ask you? Just to wrap this thing up, do you ever? You were talking about using bots. How many vintage machine 2s do you think you have right now?
Is that the 15 to 20?
Yeah, the 15 to 21. Do you burn right through them?
I think I have. I've used a lot, so I think I'm down to like 200 of those.
200. So I'm about to do a video.
I've had well over 1,000, and I trying to get my Hancock and what at the time was Full Metal, now is Elf, trying to get all that gear to 45. I've used a lot of my bots.
Yeah, I'm about to do a video showing people how to turn 5 bots of each all the way into a level 40 piece of gear, because it's really not that expensive if you have a ton of bots. You just got to remember to use them. Plus, you've got to use your energy stones too to get more Geist stones and Spirit stones. So you got to have legendary gear anyway. So you energy stone the legendary gear, you melange up to 10 or 15, and then bot all the way to level whatever you can afford in bots, and then you recycle down from level 40 piece of gear, and you get that level 41 bot or level 45 bot. But
well, no, exactly. So the challenge is the bots in between, right? The 20 to 25 bots. Very hard to get. They're just not very pervasive in the game. So, I'll take a bunch of gear to level 20 and then recycle that so that I end up with a bunch of the 20 to 25 bots. And it's the same thing with the 30 to 35 bots.
Right.
They're also very difficult to get. So I had to take a bunch of gear to 30 and then recycle that. Well, I had to do this kind of in waves. And the AI bots, which are a little bit easier to get because they're available in the World Event Store. So, I'll buy some of those with my honor coins. But, it's those in-between bots that take all of the recycling time, evolve and recycling time to be able to fill in those gaps so that I can take pieces of gear all the way up to 40. It's very, very time consuming. And, I can tell you to do one commander to plus 45 probably took me, for all of his gear to plus 45, would probably take me somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 hours of constant, upgrading the gear, recycling, and going through that whole process all the way to 40
God.
To get that nanobot.
God, that's a lot of time. You ever thought about hiring someone to do that? Just paying someone to do it? Now, listen, there's plenty of free-to-play players in your guild that would gladly do it for a gold pack.
I'd be afraid to turn the keys over to my ARC, even to my most trusted friends. It's just too much investment in this ARC to do that. And plus, I don't want to get into that topic. But in any event, it pays off in the end when you see your commander perform with that level of gear.
Yeah.
And then I enjoy a few days of being able to advance past the first round of peak, and then all that goes away when they make another major change.
Wow. You just reminded me that I have enough for 6 primary AIs. Huh.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got a ton of these. I never actually use the honor tokens because I never migrate, and I'm not a big ARC. Okay, I'm going to have to say this before I let you go. You said that you don't want to get into that topic. People are going to ask, what was the topic regarding account sharing?
Well, so I have a few alts, and I've had to change how I played the game in terms of how I spend. And I was spending gold on resources, I was spending gold on magazines and on Melange all at once, and it was just not going anywhere. So about a year ago, I bought some alts that took care of the resource problem, and then I pretty much am done with mags lately, and I'm just focusing now on Melange for gear, because that's the last piece, and that's probably the most important piece I need to be focused on. But with regard to alts and buying accounts, it's a very risky thing, and there are so many doors that people can get into these ARCs with. The Google Play Store, the Apple Store, the Facebook, email. There are so many ways to access these ARCs. It's difficult to secure these accounts that you buy. And so I just, I've had people trying to steal the accounts, and it's really, really frustrating. And working with the devs, trying to get them to lock out, certain old emails or stuff like that. It's just a real difficult process. That was what I was going to say. I didn't really want to talk about alts, but
yeah,
it's part of my gameplay.
So you don't buy resources from a resource vendor?
I have in the past on the other server, but
Gotcha.
I have taken the approach that I would rather farm my own resources and buy the Aether coins on my alts. I wanted to support the devs. I wanted to support them rather than the resource dealers. And
oh, you do. Trust me, you do. They're getting their money's worth.
But I wanted, I know it's against the rules to have alts and all that kind of stuff, but everybody's got them. But I wanted to show them that, hey, I'm spending money on these alts. It's not like you're getting, you're not getting any kind of return. But all that's kind of, after this morning, all that's kind of gone to the wayside. And it's made me rethink everything I'm doing in terms of supporting Seven Pirates.
So, okay. So you're on a callback now. You're not logging in for 7 days. You're missing the Galactic Battle this week. Your aim is that you hope that the developers respond and recover the gold, plus your frustration, right? Come on, let's be honest.
Right.
Like, what a headache. Okay. But so you're waiting for them to email you back saying, we've recovered the gold. Sorry about the misunderstanding. Have a nice day.
I don't think, I absolutely have 100% faith they're going to recover the gold. There's a deeper point to me, and that is, why do I have to go through this?
Oof.
Why do I have to go through threatening to quit to get them to do what I think is the right thing?
You're speaking to my soul.
I mean, seriously though, Mel.
It's true, man.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, it's true.
Why is it have to go to this extent? Why do I have to get the community involved? Why do I have to get the guild involved to correct a simple mistake that, quite frankly, the possibility of making a mistake should never have been there in the first place?
So here,
it should not be an option with evolving troops.
Here's
repurposing.
Here's the thing: your statement or your account status being second biggest account in the English world or whatever, top 5 account, whatever. They should have known who you were when they looked at that transaction and did it. Like, you should have had a little VIP treatment. But that's not to take away that any player should have gotten that same they should have gotten the same level of respect as a high-end player. When someone accidentally spends 1 million gold, not 100,000, 1 million gold, they should be able to undo that by just taking the troops away. It's not that big of a deal. And and it's enough to piss a player off that they know. Like, the support, it's so much easier for their support to be like, yeah, sorry, we can't do nothing about it, have a nice day, move on to their next ticket. But the cost of it is this. And this is because they have poor community management, poor customer relations. And we'll see what comes of it. I'll obviously, the community will stay tuned in to the line chats and the Discord. I'm sure I'll talk about it on Tuesday, Newsday next week, because it'll be exactly 7 days then. And I hope it works out for you. Obviously, as a community, we don't want to lose you.
Like I said, I have no doubt that they're going to come through. It's just the question of why did it have to go to this extent, and do I want to continue to have to fight these battles if with people that simply don't value the customer, and maybe they don't even look at me as a customer. Maybe they think I'm serving them. I don't know. It's just kind of a backwards. It's just a backwards relationship with the players and the development team. It's just very weird.
Yeah, I get these dark thoughts sometimes that the business development side never expected this game to do so well in English-speaking countries, foreign countries, that they made it, they made some money, they had a big splash. At this point, they're just happy they profited. Now it feels like they just don't care what happens. I know that's not true, because a businessman wouldn't think like that. But sometimes I think the customer service staff thinks like that. They're like, well, there's only so much we can do. Moving on. Like they just...
Well, and then you throw in the translation issues between English and Chinese, and and the translators aren't all that great to begin with. It's difficult, and I acknowledge that, and the customer support staff, Lorenzo and Sue and the people that we deal with in support on a daily basis, they're doing their best. I don't have any issues with those people. They're just following the marching orders that they're given.
Right.
And so that's why I'm not hard on them. I don't cuss at them. I don't, go on rants or anything like that. And I've also tried to be complimentary with some of the changes that they've made in terms of, adding new events, adding the simulator. I try to give them some good feedback as well. And part of the reasons I was doing that was so that I could develop a little bit of goodwill with them, so that if there was a problem like what I'm having right now, they would maybe be a little nicer to me. Obviously, that wasn't the case.
That wasn't the case.
No, that was... No, that just didn't happen in this particular case.
In their defense, it's only been less than 24 hours, and the first response was, there's nothing we can help you. Their second response, which you got 2 responses in less than 12 hours, was, we'll give you half. So, I mean, the second response should have been better. That was a blunder. But I love that you say that you have full faith that you're going to get the gold back, 100% faith, because I'm just shaking my head going, I've got like 90% faith. Like, I'm not that confident.
Well, hey, the way I look at it now, I have nothing to lose. They're either going to give me the gold back, or I'm not going to play the game, and I'm going to find something else, and it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So I'm going to win either way.
Well,
but no, they're not stupid people over there. They, I've seen emails from their chief operating officer, and they're smart people. They do value the players. It just. For some reason they put up a barrier, and it's difficult to get through that barrier in terms of common sense, and this is one of those things. They just need to use a little bit of common sense to say, hey, yeah, this guy did not mean to evolve troops using gold.
Right, and it's one of those things that if they would have just done it the right thing right away secretly, like when they did with that guy that zeroed himself on the server boss. They just replaced his troops. Right. No one made a big muck about it. It wasn't a big deal. But now, by doing it wrong and trying to just ignore it, now they've got a bigger problem. Because now everyone's going to be talking about it.
It's gone public, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's gone public. I've posted in our line chat what we're doing, and all of the Seraphim guys know. I've talked to Gangaji about it. So yeah, it's out there now, and just another example of another player not being treated right. And it just, we see a lot of the players not being treated right, but they weren't, 1.7 billion. I know it sounds kind of egotistical, but, I'm a pretty big ARC. I have a huge investment in this game, and they're denying me too. Yeah. It's not like I'm being singled out or being treated specially. They're also denying me. So, I mean, it's just a problem with how they interact with the player community. Will it change? I hope it does. I just don't see it happening. And, like I said, I'm going to win either way. Either they are going to come to the table and give me the gold back, or I'm going to go do something different.
Right.
There's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah. Well, and it just goes back to that original thought in my mind when you said that this morning. So many times in my early Ark of War career where I misclicked and spent 1,000 gold. My first time I misclicked and spent 1,000 gold and I tried to get it back and they denied me. I thought, God, what if that would have been a lot more? And this is the episode of, man, this guy did it, but with 1,000,000 gold. And this is what the developers did.
It's embarrassing. I mean, truly, it's embarrassing that I did it, but it's clearly a mistake.
Yeah.
And the answer, we've already covered this, but the answer was, well, you should have your confirmed gold option checked in options.
Right.
And that's not the answer.
It's not.
Not in my book.
Yeah. Well, there should also be a threshold too. It's like if it's more than 1,000 gold, or if it's more than 20,000, you could set parameters. Or even like if it's over 100,000, you have to click this 3 times. Like they should do smarter things on their end to make sure people don't misclick, because it only takes one extra push of a button. And who knows, maybe your screen's dirty. Maybe you're watching TV while you're making 60 level 30 items to recycle. This game takes a lot of time. So I mean, I get it, man. You don't have to feel embarrassed. People make that mistake all the time. It's just, how do the developers respond to it? And that's really how we end the episode. Is, I guess we'll find out. We'll find out in the next couple of days.
Well, we will find out. Now, personally, I think the solution is to take the gold option out. Just take it out. I doubt that has been used ever. Maybe in the very, very early days, but who uses gold for that kind of thing? So take the option out so that other players don't have the same problem I'm having.
Yeah, not a single player in the world would do that. Yeah.
No.
It's like they don't even play the game, It's like sometimes you see that and you go, does anyone play this game over there? Have you guys stopped playing it a year ago? Is that what happened?
I absolutely think they do play the game. I absolutely do think that developers are on the game and they're playing it, and I think they have to keep these servers a little bit interesting. Mm-hmm. I think they're playing Nemesis Arcs and they're trying to keep activity on the server, and I think that's the right thing to do for them. I can't prove that they're doing that.
I was going to say, that's quite a conspiracy.
Well, I think that they should be doing that if they want to keep this game robust.
Well,
if server activity completely dies off, and it has on a number of servers, they're going to lose a lot of players.
Well, they need to add world events every 4 hours, even when it's not an event week. That NPCs spawn, rare spawns. If you're looking at the map, you'll see a golden lion spawn, and it's like the equivalent of a 13 monster, and if you kill it, you can get 50 magazines or something. Like there needs to be rare spawns. They need to have like pirate NPCs that attack you in the game if you're unshielded. Not just players, but other pirate factions, NPCs. The world map needs to change. The capitals need to change. They're so useless. I mean, they're literally just boundary markers, but there's nothing in them. Why isn't one of them a forest? Why isn't one of them like a desert? Why isn't one of them like a mountaintop or a snow-covered land? Why don't they have special benefits and spawns there? How come there's no fog of war? Why can we see the entire map? How come there isn't a radar thing where we can look for unshielded ship? There's so much to do. There's so much to do.
I agree. I think there's the map is really stagnant. There's a lot of improvement that they can make that really would make the game very interesting again on the server side. And I don't really have great ideas for how they can do that. But, you do, and I hope you share that with them. And the thing is, when you share something with them, I don't know what happens to it.
Have you ever seen? It's like a trash can. Someone picks it up and then someone puts it in the trash can.
I mean, we spent weeks. I think you were in that line chat group where we were coming up with ideas for improving gameplay and all that kind of stuff. And I took that list to them. Nothing was approved.
Yeah.
They think, oh, this is a good idea. Nothing happened with it. Nothing. I had a couple. I think Sue came back and said, "Hey, that's a good idea," in broken English.
Yeah.
And nothing happened.
In Sue's defense, though, she speaks at least 2 other languages. So, mad credit to Sue. She works hard.
Hey, like I said, I have a lot of respect for those people. That has to be one of the worst jobs on the planet, is being a customer service rep for a game.
Yeah.
Looking at some of the emails that are sent, and I see some of the screenshots of the messages, it's brutal.
Yeah.
And I've told players that are in my guild, don't send messages like that. They're not gonna. Of course, they're not gonna help you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. Well.
Anyhow. But hey, thanks for the time. This was really awesome. I got an opportunity to get some things off my chest and explain what's going on. Maybe a couple months down the line we can do it again.
Yeah.
Love to do something like this, maybe as a round table with some other players. That'd be kind of cool.
I would be game for that, like a post-game match chat. Yeah. That could be a thing. Well.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
All right, then. We got to come up with a name for it, but we could always just jump in Discord and throw it together.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, so let's end it on that, Rookie. It's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks again, Mel.
Yeah, I'll have my ear on the news here to see what happens with this story, and I'll keep everyone updated. Check in the comments below as well. If you're catching this a couple days late, there's going to be developments in the comments. I'll pin those, and then keep your eye on the channel. Subscribe if you're not, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Hey, make sure you cut out the bad parts where I don't sound good or I sound like an idiot.
I'm leaving all the conspiracy stuff in.
It's real. It's not a conspiracy. It's real.
Maybe I'll sit down. Well, here's the thing. I could run 1,000 simulations to see the trigger rates, but if I run them in Ace, that might be different than a capital battle or on a ship or in galactic battle. I don't know how the code is written. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be true.
Yeah.
That could be true.
Anyway, all right, man. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
All right, bye-bye.